Hello, I'm Kimberlie and welcome to the weekend edition of the Native News Update. It's Friday, November 18th. Many of the stories you hear here can be found at IndianCountryNews.com. And here's the news for the day from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. Native American tribes said they want their share of the jobs and revenue if online gambling is allowed in the U.S., but say they don't want to lose their sovereignty to get it. Internet gambling has been prohibited in the U.S. since 2006, which has sent fans and their money to sites based offshore. With Congress searching for money to cut the deficit and create new jobs, supporters see an opening for legalizing at least some online gambling. Should Congress act, the federal government will have to write rules and will likely collect taxes from proceeds. Native American tribes want the federal government to ensure that they are allowed to operate, regulate, tax, and license online gambling as well if they choose to get into the business. While there is no internet gambling bill before the Senate committee, there is legislation in the House, though it already has opposition from tribal leaders. Ernie Stevens Jr., chairman of the National Indian Gaming Association, said tribes have united behind some core principles, including no taxation of tribal revenues. Current internet gambling proposals violate those principles, and we oppose their passage, he said. Some at the hearing expressed concern about proposals to allow the Department of Commerce to regulate operators of internet games. Tribal leaders want the National Indian Gaming Commission to continue to regulate their businesses. The Canadian government announced new money to address drinking water quality on northern Manitoba reserves, as it said it would support a Liberal motion to ensure all First Nation reserves have clean running drinking water. Aboriginal Affairs Minister John Duncan announced $5.5 million to help improve infrastructure in Manitoba Island's Lake First Nations communities which have faced severe water quality issues. The Opposition Day motion, moved by interim Liberal leader Bob Rae, asked for the need for safe drinking water to be addressed on an urgent basis no later than the spring of 2012. More than 150 First Nation reserves across Canada are under drinking water advisories. To cite one example, the Fort McKay First Nation in Alberta has been relying on bottled water due to fears that the community municipal supplied water may be tainted by high levels of cancer-causing chemical compounds. On November 15th, environmental organization EcoJustice gave the Canadian government an F grade in its government report card on drinking water, emphasizing its failure to protect First Nation communities. A multi-million-dollar Native American Arts Center planned for the Black Hills will include a performance amphitheater, powwow grounds, and Native products. The Haisapa Black Hills Center for Indian Arts and Performance, to be built near Rapid City's Journey Museum, is estimated to cost no more than $5.9 million. Project manager Randy Ross says it's designed to be a cultural attraction, a center for market education, and a place to showcase Northern Plains tribal cultures. The Alliance of Tribal Tourism is leading the project and says it will be partially funded through 2012 funds. The city has committed $812,000 towards the estimated Phase 1 construction cost of $1.8 million. Organizers are seeking additional funding from other tribes throughout the region. For more information, you can visit attatribal.com. On November 17th, a bill that would grant the right for free trade between Turkey and Native Americans was approved by the House Committee on Natural Resources of the U.S. House of Representatives. H.R. 2362, the Indian Tribal Trade and Investment Demonstration Project Act, was introduced on June 24th by Representative Tom Cole of Oklahoma, who is the only Native American serving in Congress and also co-chair of the Native American Caucus. The bill was proposed following efforts exerted by Cole and the head of the Turkish Coalition of America, Lincoln McCurdy, who recommended that Turkey, with its noteworthy economic progress, can make valuable contributions to the Native American economy. The interest of the Turkish companies and their strengths in the construction sector will help the growth of Native American economy and create jobs for Native Americans. The project, supported by the Act, will be entirely funded by private enterprise and involves no cost to the U.S. government. The proposed bill authorizes the Secretary of the Interior to select up to 6 tribes to participate in the Act to facilitate economic development by tribes and encourage investment by Turkish enterprises, and to remove the certain barriers to facilitate trade and financial investments in tribal economies. On November 16th, Kansas Governor Sam Brownback issued a proclamation apologizing to the American Indian tribes who previously occupied lands within what is now the state's borders. The Republican governor signed the apology as part of Kansas's ongoing commemoration of its 150 years of statehood. Brownback said the year-long events were a time to remember the heritage and culture that shaped the state's landscape since 1861. Kansas takes its name from the Kansa tribe, one of 19 tribes once located in the state before they were relocated by the U.S. government. The proclamation references the contributions of those tribes and acts perpetrated against them by the United States, including forcibly removing children from their families and making them learn new languages and cultures. Brownback, a former U.S. Senator, was behind the similar federal apology that was signed in 2010 by President Barack Obama that recounted the nation's deception and neglect on Native peoples. The governor presented each tribe with an American bison from the state herd. Officials from Iowa, Prairie Band Potawatomi, Kickapoo, Kaw, and Sac and Fox were represented at the ceremony. Their leaders said they accept the apology and hoped it leads to greater cooperation between them and the state. On November 5th, while 10,000 people encircled the White House to protest the Keystone XL pipeline, judges at the Banff Mountain Film Festival in Canada were on stage giving an award to a powerful documentary, Spoil, which is about the Northern Gateway and Alberta's oil sands strip mines. As environmentalists across the United States are praising last week's State Department decision to delay approval of the controversial Keystone XL pipeline in Western Canada, where activists have been battling the massive tar sands development at the head of the pipeline for decades, the fight is nowhere near over. In fact, an impromptu sideline meeting at the APEC summit in Hawaii this past weekend, Canadian Finance Minister scolded President Obama for delaying the Keystone project and reminded him that the U.S. is not the only oil buyer in the world market. Referring to a pipeline proposal that is extremely controversial in Canada but virtually unknown in the U.S., the Enbridge Oil Company's Northern Gateway, which would pump tar sands bitumen 731 miles to the coast of northwestern British Columbia, where it would be put on supertankers destined for China.
Years ago, the whole world was covered with ice and snow, and the Indians were having a hard time surviving. And God told them, He said, I'm going to make things easy for you. Things are going to start to grow. You'll have food. You'll have trees growing and all that. Look after it. You take care of it. That's why I'm putting that bear in here, to remind you the way the world used to be, all white. That's why the natives call it a spirit bear. And that's a warning to keep this world clean. Because the Creator told us, you got to look after this world, take care of it.
Spoil, the film documentary which is trying to bring awareness to this struggle, takes place in the Great Bear Rainforest, one of the wildest pieces of land on Earth. The Northern Gateway's proposed path takes it through a sensitive section of the Great Bear, and according to the film, threatens the livelihoods of the people of the Gitgat First Nation and also could destroy the habitat of the Kermode bear, an extremely rare all-white creature also known as the spirit bear. Trip Jennings, who directed and edited the film, says the existence of the spirit bear was a secret that the Gitgat rarely spoke of. The Gitgat were the first reluctant to make the spirit bear the symbol of their quest to protect its and their home. But as Gitgat leader and guide Marvin Robinson explains in Spoil, the prospect of supertankers plying their narrow intercoastal waterways moved his community to allow the spirit bear to become the icon for the whole pipeline issue. For more information on the documentary, you can visit facebook.com/spoilfilm.
Indigenous communities have made it clear. This pipeline is yet another example of the devastating exploitation of Native people and their lands in our pursuit of fossil fuels. The Gitgat Nation is just one example of the hundreds of communities threatened by the far reach of the tar sands. But this project won't just destroy Native cultures. Building an export pipeline from the tar sands will decide the energy future of the North American continent. As oil reserves around the world grow scarce, pressure builds to extract and burn every remaining drop. And each drop is more costly than the last. Will we choose to export the dirtiest oil in the world to the highest bidder, making the petroleum bubble last a few years longer? Or will we use this resource sparingly, as a strategic reserve, and a pathway to a cleaner, more renewable energy future?
And that's another roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. I'd like to thank you for joining me, and have a grand day.